Good morning and welcome to the show. Today is the 11th day of the year and in January, so we're still celebrating the new year. Happy New Year once again. Today on the show, we bring you an interesting testimony yet very emotional by Lilian Nakato, and we'll have our song story by Casey Sami. And later on the show, we'll have G-Way host GXP, and of course assisted by David Ogutu, and we'll have a music mix by Tonjex. Enjoy, but for now, let us start with a testimony. Diagnosed with a number of diseases, Lilian Nakato chose to be very faithful in God and to trust God. She prayed and believed that one day something will be different. And indeed, God changed the doctor's report for her. Here is her story. Welcome, Lilian.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us here on GXP. Before we were on the show, I had your testimony and it was touching. And I'm very sure there's so many people out there who are going through what you once went through, especially in hospitals, and they're watching right now. I know you can be a voice.
Thank you.
You know, you can be a voice to them. You can, through you, God can change them. But would love to know about your story. Tell us your testimony.
Thank you. My testimony is so much in the power of God. Once you believe that He is and He can actually give you the healing you are looking for. Just a few years back, I fell sick, but the doctors could not diagnose what was the problem. Meanwhile, I had symptoms of every other serious disease you can think about. They thought it was HIV. I did an HIV test, which was negative, but I was continuing to have all the symptoms of someone who has a liver problem or a kidney problem or HIV. And when I went to one of the international hospitals, I was diagnosed to have had kidney failure for both of my kidneys. And they suggested I needed a very urgent operation, otherwise I wouldn't last even a month. So I continued to pray. I believed in God. Inside me, something was telling me.
Were you already born again at that time?
I was already a born again Christian. So I said, God, you know the inside of me, you know every part in me. I need to know what is wrong, and I know you can heal me. So after about 3 weeks, the condition deteriorated, and I really needed to go to the operation. I consulted other doctors for second, third opinion, and they would all look at the scans and say, you need this operation. But I would go to God, and I'll pray, and I'll cry to Him and say, God, I want your intervention. I'm your child, and I believe you have the power to heal me. Then one time I had gone for a meeting, and somebody I didn't know very much called me and said, you come, I must talk to you. You have a problem, you have a sickness, and I know what it is, and I know the doctor who can help you. So I listened, but that time I had a lot of depression because people decided to believe I had AIDS, and you know, they could not come to talk to me, they feared me. And I knew their faces telling me that every time I would get near to them. So I didn't want to be so much near people talking to me. But I went to her. I felt inside me a prompting that I should listen. And I did listen. And she directed me to a certain professor here in Kampala. He's a medical doctor. And when I went there, the doctor prescribed again, diagnosed me again and said I had a problem called thyrotoxicosis. It is a problem of the thyroid, and he told me I was in late stages. He told me I was even late for treatment. And I remember him ask me one question, do you believe in God? And that is what brought back my life. I said, God, they've given you as a reference. I said, I do, and I believe in Him. So he said, this treatment, you might die immediately if I start you on. So it's your faith that will work. I told him, let's start it. He told me, Lilian, if you're going to live, to tell you honestly, you have 6 weeks. I couldn't even tell my family. I couldn't tell even my husband the number of days that he had given me. But when he said, it's between you and your God, I got a relief I could not understand. I said, Lord, it's in your hands, it's in your power. So he started on the treatment. This sickness I had, one of the funny symptoms was, if I was home, I would forget where office is. I would have to work so so hard to remember. If I was at the clinic, I would try to remember where home is. So I had to stop driving because I realized I wasn't safe. So this one time, he said he's given me 6 weeks. We started on the treatment. He told me to go back after 2 weeks. After 2 weeks, he couldn't believe what he saw. First of all, I had lost weight from about 76 kilograms to about 52 in just a matter of weeks. And I had symptoms of somebody who has full-blown AIDS. My eyes were out. Everything on my body looked like I was dying anytime. So when I went after 2 weeks, they checked my weight. It had gone to about 60. When they checked all the other tests, they had reversed. You know, what had happened to my body, it was doing the opposite of what it's supposed to do for me to live. So I was forgetting, I was not seeing all that was happening to me. After 2 weeks, I had done almost a turnaround. He couldn't believe it, but he said, you know what, we depended on God. So I think God has intervened in your life. And after 6 weeks, I was back to 76 kilograms. And everything started to reverse and reverse and reverse. And of course, most people thought I am now either on HIV drugs, maybe I'm on that kidney transplant, whatever. But it just happened like that, and my life went back to normal.
Do you have anything to show us how you looked?
Well, I don't have much to show, but I can show you the pictures I took. Yeah. Actually, not even because I wanted people to see, but just like I was in meetings or wherever, yeah? Oh. So I have those pictures that would show you I was darker than that wall. I was so thin. So I was so different from the person I was. So I'm here to say God's healing power is still present up to today. Up to today. And you know, I joined a ministry. The church is called Gateway Revival Glory Church, and we have a ministry called Mother to Mother. We help mothers to learn to pray for their children. We have seen children with diseases that the doctors have given up get better. You know, we have seen God heal cancer. When you believe, it shall be done. That's what the Bible says. I'm not saying stop the drugs. You can get on your treatment, but believe in the supernatural hand that can make those drugs become the miracle you need.
Okay, Lilian, your testimony is very powerful, and it has actually left me almost speechless. Mm-hmm. But I was talking to a young man earlier on today, mm-hmm. and he asked me a question mm-hmm. that I think I should ask you. Mm-hmm. He said, but Carol, how easy is it to have faith mm-hmm. without you getting tempted?
I think the key is in the fact that it is God's power that heals. Not anything in my mind, not anything in my body, mm-hmm. or anything in what I do. I want to believe in that power. And normally what helps me to hold my faith high is I look at the things God created. I would look at the sun and say, for sure, you are there. You created it. Nobody can claim any works in it. Mm-hmm. I would look at just what God created, and I would choose to believe that as they live, then God can send me healing. It helps me to know He's there.
Okay, so how long did this take? From the time you got diagnosed and the time you got healed?
I think it
How much time are we talking about?
It took me like 3 months, but it took like 1 year of failure to diagnose what was my problem. Like they couldn't tell what was the problem. Until later on, after the HIV tests were negative, that is when they said my kidneys had flopped. And I quickly needed an operation to remove one, and maybe possibly later on a transplant.
So you didn't even do any operation?
I didn't. I didn't even go back to the doctor for that. I just said, Lord, you are going to help me here. You created me. You know everything that is in me. Mm-hmm. So what helped me is really simply those things that I would look at and say, for sure there is a God. And then I would go back to His word in Jeremiah 29:11, that my plans for you are plans for good. I would say, God, I've served you, I've loved you. if you choose that I go, my children should know what was my problem. And I was like, I surrendered it to you. I'm getting my healing from you. So I stuck on believing the power, using what he created, that I can see, that I can look at and say, that same power can be a source of healing for my life.
Okay, Lilian, there's so many people out there, and they're watching right now. They've had, for example, there's someone you find who has had HIV and has been believing for God's healing for about 10 years and they're not seeing it. And there's someone who has cancer and every single day she's waiting to die, but still believing God for a chance to live, you know? And somehow they feel like losing hope, like giving up. Somehow they feel like, okay, maybe God is not listening to us. How can you encourage them? And also in terms of scripture.
Okay. What I can say to such a person is that the faith I'm talking about is not the command that you give to God, that, you know, heal me, you must heal me. No. The faith I'm talking about is to surrender your life to him and say, Lord, you know, let it be from you, not from man. You understand? Because still one day I will go and meet my Father. But the faith I'm talking about is, as much as I believe, I so much depend on his word in Matthew, that thy will be done for my life. Let your will be done for my life. And there is a verse in Romans 8:28 which says, all things happen for good to those that love the Lord and are called by his name. When we go back to Job, you know, he didn't take a 1 day of sickness. Joseph did not take a 1 day of operation. From the pit, he went to being a houseboy. From being a houseboy or servant, he went to being a servant in a prison until he was a prime minister. You know, in God's sight, 1 year is like a day. He doesn't have the same calendar like the one we use in our minds. Yes, so, but what I can tell to that person is that all things works for God. It may take a long time, but God is not a liar. Listen so much as to what he says to you. If he says, take courage, take heart, just do that. He will work on the balances. And he's a God who brings history into present. Because I believe he has enabled me to achieve all I was supposed to achieve in the days I lost out during sickness. I've had a number of encounters with God, and my word is, believe him for who he is. Not for what you know he did for someone, but what you know he does. There are so clear ways to believe in God. He created that sun. It's up and down. It's out in Africa. It's, you know, out, it's off in Canada or other countries. So who does that kind of order? The God who formed every part in my body. So believe in him, surrender to him, and just wait on him. Relax, and things will happen.